the season of giving, and Bokksu is celebrating by giving us a free box to gift to whoever we wanted. So we gave one to JelloApocalypse. Go over to his channel to see his reaction.
Can you guys hear this?
Yes, we super can.
This episode of the Talkcast Podshow. Prodding my show. Don't prod my show, bro. This episode of the Talkcast Podshow is brought to you by Bokksu, our favorite deliverer of premium Japanese snacks straight from the land of the rising sun. You can get yours today with TeamFourStar 10 at checkout as your promo code. Link in the description and pinned comment as always. Let's see what we got here. I believe this is the colors of
Kyoto!
buns.
I love Kyoto. I've actually been to Kyoto, and it is my favorite place in Japan to go currently. Tokyo is really nice, but Kyoto just feels more homey, you know?
Let's start off with some colorful komachi. Yep, it is indeed a rice cracker that has been glazed with, I believe, soy, if I'm tasting correctly. There's some seaweed. Delightful little snacks, and we did the tea properly this time. This is some matcha ole.
I love matcha latte.
Up next here, I believe these are Osatsu snack sweet potato chips.
I do love potato chip. Oh my gosh, yeah, they're very, they're the fluffy kind, like the kind you get at Whole Foods.
Yeah, that's a sweet potato.
Oh, that's really good.
It looks like a regular potato chip, but it has like this lingering sweetness that you expect from like a yam or a sweet potato.
When you said sweet potato chip, I thought you just meant a potato chip that's sweet. I didn't realize you meant actual sweet potato.
Yeah.
First of all, not, they probably lost some of the color in the actual processing.
They didn't
But
get tan.
yeah, they're not tanned. They're not food colored, which is also good. But oh my God, these are really good.
Next up, we have little strawberry candies. We got several of these.
No!
I'm dumping things left and right, but a strawberry azuki brunch. I bet you can't guess what these are gonna taste like. They look like little granola bars.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's delightful. It's like yogurt dipped pretzels, but like I think these are like little rice crispy crackers in here.
Took me a moment to get all the flavor all over my tongue. Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Tyler, we got a third. Catch!
Hey!
You suck!
Hey, I do!
More potatoes.
More potatoes. Actually, doesn't see it listed. It's a mystery. For us.
No, the name.
Got the potato guy.
Potato chip. Yeah, it just says potato chips. It literally just says potato chips.
It took all that time when I got it right the first time from the go. Fluent right here. There's something there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's got dashi shoyu on it.
Okay, that's what I was tasting. Two great Kyoto matcha waffles.
They have two! They have two! Yes! I'm about to lose my shit if this doesn't let me in though.
Oh. You see, there's nothing more disappointing in the world than when you get like a little waffle cookie and it's like limp. This, crisp, delicious.
Here's the thing, I can do chewy. I can do chewy, I can do crunchy. This is amazing. The mouthfeel on this is stupendous.
Mouthfeel.
The green tea comes through actually really heavy. Like, I wouldn't say too heavy, but it is the star of this.
The buttery waffle shell really works well with the matcha icing or a paste on the inside.
This is one of my favorite things I've gotten out of Bokksu in a while.
Noir black cocoa soft cookies. Ano imo sweet potato. Oh, I guess the cream on it's like a little soft Oreo with like sweet potato cream on the inside. I don't know how to feel about this. It's interesting.
So when you taste sweet potato in things, it's very much the essence of sweet potato, right? This tastes like I just bit into an actual sweet potato, and I mean like with the skin. Like, yeah, that's what I taste here. I taste the skin, I taste the everything in the sweet potato in this. This is insane.
I think
This is crazy.
I think it's the fact like the cocoa powder is just so dense. Like it adds that earthy coffee-like flavor. These are Bosun Haiku Senbei, which according to their description are based off of poetry.
Like little petals, sakura petals.
It is a potpourri of like almost like a trail mix of like Japanese snacks. You got like little rice crackers, sugared. To try to describe this dish properly, I don't think you can because there are so many different little things in here.
Yeah, wow, actually. So these types of snacks are made very specifically to be paired with tea, like I've said in the past. Delicious.
Delightful.
Trail mix.
It is.
It's fucking trail mix. It's Japanese trail mix.
But it's so pretty.
It's so good. What's next, brother?
Next up, we have Tile Candy Black Sesame Crunch. I like it. It tastes smoky. You got this dense, like it's literally just sugar, like encasing all of these little sesame seeds.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, you're choking.
Yeah.
Well, I found something that's probably for you.
Oh, that's definitely for me. I can tell already.
One bite pound cake, ano imo sweet potato.
Oh yeah, a little pound cake. Pound of cakey. Oh.
I've gotten really strong. Pounds are so much lighter now.
It's buttery. The sweet potato flavor is there, but it's like subtle.
What can we say about cake from Bokksu that we haven't said before? It's moist, it's delicious, it's subtly sweet.
What a wonderful crumb.
What a wonderful crab. No soggy bottom. Is it worth the calories?
That's what you would say.
Prue sucks.
This one we do only have one of. Hojicha tea waffle.
Oh man.
Oh, look at that! It's got a cute little design on top. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, those are always really cool. I'm a big fan of stuff like this.
And it's creased, so in theory, aha.
Awesome. Hojicha. By the way, big fan of hojicha, so this should be good.
Holy crap. This is like that other waffle cookie sandwich, but like amped up to 11.
Yeah, the sweetness has been toned down a little bit in the actual cream in the middle. The cookie is still very sweet though. The cookie is kind of carrying the sweetness of it, while the hojicha.
Yeah, it's like those like little Vienna fingers. Like,
Yeah.
That's what the kind of cookie is, but this tea spread on the inside, like you can see the granules of the actual tea in it.
This is something that I would easily buy on its own regularly.
Now, if this was like sitting in a convenience store in that like impulse buy section, I'd get it every now and again. Hope you're ready for more green tea, motherfucker.
I always am. Don't you ask me that.
Green tea, daifuku mochi.
Yeah, no, that's green tea mochi, which is a plus. Like everything about that. Hell yeah.
Following up all of that, we have mochi, chocolate, Mont Blanc.
Mochi mochi.
Mochi.
Oh, neat.
It's a little, it's like.
Oh, wait, is there
serving
two of them
set.
there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool, and it comes. Okay, so here's a really cool thing. Whoop.
Yeah. Got it that time.
So you can. It actually comes with a little serving thing. Nick's not gonna do that though. He has no interest.
Yeah, that serving thing's actually useful. Okay. Oh my god. That is a dense chocolate flavor. Like it's just spreading out. It's like a frozen lava cake. Where like you bite into it and it takes a second. You have that little Food Wars moment where it's like oh. Ah!
Yeah, no. So what you might not notice, we said it's mochi, but inside is actually like a chocolate truffle?
Like a chocolate bonbon, yeah.
Yeah. And it is, oh my god, here you go if you want one more. That is so much flavor and so much texture, and it's thick. It is, oh man, that is a thick boy.
It is in fact very dense. Like you can feel the weight, the heft.
Yeah, especially when it's in your mouth.
Put this in a slingshot.
And I only have a little bit of tea left, so down the hatch.
There we go.
Thanks again to Bokksu for another beautiful, bountiful box. And if you want to give it a try, make sure to put in the code TeamFourStar10 at checkout to get 10% off your first order.
Hello and welcome to the Talkcast Podshow, the #1 show on the internet and your source for spider blood, radioactive spider blood. I'm your host, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Lan, and I'm joined this week by the 8th member of the Sinister Six, Scott. Kaiser Frerix, and the kingpin of all comics, Linkara. How you guys doing?
You know what? It's a Wednesday, so
actually, that's very appropriate for talking about comic book related stuff.
Oh, really?
I mean, you say it's Wednesday, but I believe all three of us have worked atypical work schedules for the past decade at least.
I mean, at this point, so I mean, we had something closer to a more traditional work schedule before the plague.
Before the cataclysm.
The before times and the long ago.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of did, but still, like, only because we were like really trying to push it and like, yeah, no, everybody kind of needs their weekends, but at the same time, still kind of self-employed, so you're still just kind of working whatever shift you can.
Well, as of late, honestly, I've been trying to use my weekends to actually spend some time relaxing and doing other things. But as we get closer to December, that is about to disappear. Because if anybody knows anything about content creation online, November and December are the months where you are working constantly.
October is actually usually my biggest month of the year because I'm putting out daily videos on horror comics. So like the regular Atop the Fourth Wall show that I would get out weekly, the last 3 episodes ended up coming out like October 29th, 30th, and 31st because I did like a lot of the basic work for it, but I didn't get to actually finishing any of it until the very end of the month.
Harsh.
Speaking of, please, for anybody who might not be familiar, Linkara, let everybody know who you are.
I am the host of Atop the Fourth Wall, my weekly series where the scripted show where I riff on bad comics and occasionally, and not so occasionally anymore, considering Patreon sponsored reviews have encouraged more looks at good stuff. Where I review comic books, usually bad stuff because it's much more fun to riff on bad stuff, but occasionally good stuff too, or major events, or just goofy, weird stuff out there that the comic industry has produced over the last 100 years.
As it is wont to do.
Although more people probably know me for the once in a blue moon project I do called History of Power Rangers, where I talk way, way too long about Power Rangers stuff, usually like an entire season in multiple videos, and think way too hard about stuff that was probably not on the minds of the people creating a show adapting, Japanese tokusatsu stuff.
To be honest with you, while I have seen a bunch of your Atop the Fourth Wall episodes, History of Power Rangers is actually the thing that I watch you for the most.
and where a lot of people do it's hilarious to me that like the History of Power Rangers is basically what more people know me for. If you actually look at the numbers, History of Power Rangers videos get way more views than Atop the Fourth Wall, but Atop the Fourth Wall, the bread and butter.
It's always really interesting when you have multiple things that you work on, and when your secondary thing suddenly gets bigger than that primary thing.
It's like you just never know what's going to go viral. I mean, someday the Talkcast Podshow definitely going to be bigger than DBZA. You can't stop this momentum.
Oh, you probably
Joe
people
Rogan, move over, buddy.
On the subject of people knowing me for viral things over other things, you probably know me as that weirdo who in the running GIF.
Oh yeah.
That was part of a crossover video made years and years ago that looked stupid back then and still looks stupid now, but now people know me for that.
Well, gentlemen, I brought you guys in today because I wanted to talk about Spider-Man because, speaking of free time, lately I've been kind of sinking myself into the latest video game sensation, Spider-Man Miles Morales, which a lot of people were thinking, it's just going to be like, this may as well have just been an expansion to the last game. Kaiser, I know you absolutely loved Marvel Spider-Man. I think that was your game of the year 2018. I'll take that as a yes. This is more of that. A few things are definitely changed up. It's definitely not as big. I will admit that it doesn't, like, it kind of rides the line between feeling like it could have been a DLC to it's a full-fledged game. But I think it is a solid addition to the Spider canon, which there is a lot of, as I'm sure you can attest to, Linkara.
Just a little bit.
I mean, Spider-Man is essentially what, like Marvel's Batman, right? Because it's had such longevity. It has survived, 2 movie reboots and how many animated shows?
Yep. And that's just, the wider pop culture media. Actual storylines in comics for Spider-Man have run the gamut of things that have almost taken the character down just because of either good or bad creative decisions that were going on for too long. The one that I always revisit even for my show's anniversary is the Clone Saga, but there have been other stuff that I will rant and rave about as well.
So I want to get it out here before we start talking about Spider-Man. I'm in a weird place here because Spider-Man for me,
it's called Texas.
Yeah, I mean, we're both there.
I know. It's weird.
I actually am not a comics guy, which isn't to say that I haven't enjoyed myself some comics. I really have. But
you just don't have the time to sink yourself into like all the graphic novels.
Exactly. I haven't. And here's the weird thing. I have read a bunch of Batman comics. I've read all of Watchmen and some of the Alan Moore's other stuff. I read Wanted, which, that still sits in my stomach like week old flapjacks.
What, you don't like Mark Miller's horrible, excessive, well, actually that can be described like pretty much every Mark Miller comic, thing where at the very last page, the main character turns to the readers and says, "You suck."
Yeah, I know. I can't get behind that brand of, nihilism.
Edgy.
Yeah. But I love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is, without hesitation, my absolute favorite superhero. And that's because with the 3 original Raimi movies, with the 90s cartoon, with Spectacular, with the 2018 game, was it?
2018.
Yeah. With the 2018 game, with Into the Spider-Verse, there are so many, and all of the Marvel Spider-Man movies, and you know what? I'm going to say it. I even got significant enjoyment out of both Amazing Spider-Man movies. They're awful.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
They are bad movies. I'm not defending them, but I still got entertainment out of them because I love Spider-Man as a concept, and I love when he's executed well. I just have never found the time to actually sink my teeth into any of the comics. So I cannot speak on behalf of the comics on how Peter Parker or Spider-Man are represented in there. I've definitely absorbed enough through osmosis, so I know more facts about Spider-Man than I know about the history of America, and I never read the goddamn comics. But I can at least say that I love Spider-Man, and even if I am not a big comics guy, I hope that shows through during the rest of this conversation.
What about you, Linkara? What are your feelings on the Amazing Spider-Man?
Of the movies?
Just in general.
I saw the first Amazing Spider-Man in theaters, and I was not impressed by it. But I was still really enjoyed the Raimi movies. So just like, yeah, okay, that was all right. Not really what I was interested in. And I never saw Amazing Spider-Man 2, and from what I have heard, that was probably a good decision.
Yeah,
it's so stupid.
I've heard about like Electric Eel Electro, but what gets me is apparently Ghost Dennis Leary constantly berating Peter or something like that.
God, those movies are definitely a mess. Like it was in that weird period where like the Marvel Cinematic Universe was just kind of taking off. And Sony was like, well, we still have Spider-Man. We can still do something right? And then Disney came along and was like, hey, hey, buddy, guy, let me just, if we can work out a deal, we can put him in these movies and you guys make some money here. We'll all make a lot of money and there will be absolutely no issues in the future.
It's a constant problem of businesses these days where very much the mindset is, if I'm not making all the money all the time, then what's the point? I don't, it's not I could make some money, or I could make all the money, or make no money because I'm not doing the thing. But in terms of like overall, my Spider-Man history and connection, it's very much similar to Taka, except of course I have read a lot more of the comics. Of course, I stopped regularly buying Spider-Man comics after One More Day, the story where Spider-Man makes a deal
Spider-Man
with
sells his soul or
sells his marriage. He sells his marriage to Satan to save Mephisto. I have to be specific about this because Mephisto is not technically the devil in Marvel.
He's just devil-like.
He's still a demon. So, but I have to be very specific about this because years and years ago, calling I don't want to complain about my viewers. Of course, it's just like it's just the constant. No, he's not really the devil. Why do you keep calling him the devil? Just like
because he's the devil, you fucking guys.
Well, actually, hold on. That brings up a good point. Like Mephisto exists. Does the devil, like Lucifer, Morningstar, exist in Marvel canon?
Technically,
yes. Okay, so no, Mephisto is not the devil. So there you go.
Shut the fuck up, Nick. He's the devil.
Just
Also, One More Day, I ruined quesadillas for me.
Casada.
Yep. Joe Quesada is a fucking, oh my god, fuck that guy. Fuck his interpretation of Spider-Man. I mean, he might actually be kind of an okay guy. I really don't know. But man, his take on Spider-Man. This is weird. I'm a guy, again, who doesn't read the comics. Even I know that his take on, I don't know, I thought he should have ended up with Gwen. Oh.
It's more that with a lot of creators, especially during the 90s, a lot of the creative staff did not like Spider-Man being married to Mary Jane Watson because they felt it restricted the character. Because traditionally, the character up until the marriage was very much a freewheeling bachelor, and the thought process was, well, Peter has to be a hard luck kind of guy. He has to choose between his personal life versus his role as a hero, and he will ultimately always choose being a hero. And the thought process is, well, if he's got that emotional core of his wife always there, then his personal life is not as bad, and it creates less drama, and a marriage is not as interesting as someone who is dating and has to miss their dates to go save the world and stuff like that. And of course, a lot of the comic buying public massively disagrees, myself especially included. And the reason why they didn't just have the characters divorce was this thought process that we want to keep Peter Parker in this nebulous age group of early 20s to mid 20s, and we don't want him to be seen as any more of an adult than that. And there were some creators, I've talked to some creators before, like at conventions and whatnot, who said if it was up to me, Peter Parker would still be in high school. Where they feel that divorce artificially ages the character. That there is
also, do you really want to say that your hero got divorced?
Exactly. It's just this mindset of theirs that there's no way that he could be relatable as a younger adult if he was a divorcee. And of course, the truth is, no, that it's a very outdated mindset.
yes, impossible to relate to that situation.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. It's a very outdated mindset of what an adult is versus what someone who is young is. Because, of course, the world has changed. Social attitudes about divorce, dating, just in general, how relationships work has changed radically, since a lot of these people are in their 50s and 60s at this point still writing.
Yeah,
and
I mean that's kind of the problem you run into with comics in general, though. I mean, imagine if because most manga have kind of a through line arc. I know they also kind of run into this issue of going on way too goddamn long, but comics never end. They started and then they kept going, which is why you've had to have these big universal resets every 10 years or so, every 10 to 15 years.
And that's mostly on the DC front. Marvel has never technically rebooted in the same way that DC has. And it's why they will constantly, why sometimes they will have flashbacks to earlier stories, and they will deliberately draw them in the style of how they were in the 60s. Which is a cute reference, but at the same time, it's like you're basically acknowledging that so much has changed since then. That comics back then are almost unrecognizable, yet it's still all in canon.
Yeah, Marvel instead like to go the route of, we have
the multiverse.
Ultimate universe now.
Yep.
We have this alternate universe where the characters start younger from different places, and we're just going to ruin it. We are going to ruin it. Oh my god.
Yeah, the Ultimate Universe basically was a great experiment to begin with, and then they fell into the same traps of the regular universe by making it impenetrable and then edgier, because again, the aforementioned Mark Miller has his tendencies, and they were not reined in.
It is unfortunate how many, so I don't have a problem with edgy comics. I have a problem when people make things edgy to try and match other products or the ecosystem that they exist within. And that happened heavily with the Ultimate Universe. How do I know all this? I've never read. Okay, no, I've actually read.
Here's the thing. I never read Ultimate either, but when it was ending, you saw everything because everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
It was making its way around the zeitgeist. You saw the Blob eat the Wasp.
Oh my god, you did though.
And that was actually still a few years before the Ultimate Universe still technically ended. So you saw it was just plummeting by that point. And yet, around the same time, that is when Miles Morales was introduced, who was it was seen very much as a breath of fresh air, because once again, we were like, okay, Peter has too much baggage at this point, and we need to be able to do some new young Spider-Man stories. So let's start over with a new character, and we can do that in this universe without interrupting the main flow of things. And
it's fascinating. Sorry, go on.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm going on too long here, but it's like I've been thinking about this lately because I saw someone, I can't remember who, post about the fact that Miles Morales has achieved the same kind of pop culture status in the minds of the larger audience out there. Like, comic readers, you'll get maybe it's a very niche thing at this point. Comic readers, most comic sales will never go past 150,000 sales, and that's for a successful comic. Even then, the most average book will only have about 40 to 60,000 readers, but the big stuff is only 150,000. Yet Miles Morales penetrated the mainstream, and you can have both Miles Morales and Peter Parker coexist both as Spider-Man and not be upsetting for people. That it is not a, well, he's replaced him, we hate him kind of thing. It was and still is very prevalent with a lot of characters versus and then I think about that and like, wow, that is actually really cool. And you wouldn't know that from when Miles first premiered, because when Miles first
premiered, it was kind of insane because I was there at ground zero when they said, by the way, we're replacing Peter Parker. And I didn't read a lot of the comics at the time, but I was in that atmosphere where everybody was talking about it and everybody was so upset. And some people were like, oh man, and they made him a black Mexican kid. Oh, this
Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rico. Well, they didn't care. They called him Mexican because, the people who really got upset about that shit. Yeah. And they were all upset because it's like forced diversity. And I was like, wait a second, but Peter Parker's been around for how many years? Doesn't it make sense that at some point Peter Parker stops being Spider-Man?
Also, having somebody of like mixed ethnicity representing a city that is literally the melting pot of America kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, so I've seen clips from the game and into the Spider-Verse. So to touch on that topic real quick, Into the Spider-Verse, there's one scene that I absolutely love. And it's the scene where Miles leaves his house and starts hitting up his friends and people he knows. The way he responds and acts around them, depending on their ethnicity, changes very subtly. And that's interesting because he's grown up around all these different people in a household of mixed ethnicity. He responds differently to different people in different ways because that's how he grew up. And it's just this really cute scene of him interacting with people differently, naturally, and organically. And it's really cute. Like, I love that scene because it's very human. And that's why, like, when I heard about Miles Morales the first time, like, in his early comics, apparently he was very bland. They didn't know what to do with him. They were like, yeah, you know, he's the new Spider-Man, but we don't know exactly what to do with him. And then as time has gone on,
they're probably afraid of writing him as a stereotype.
well, more writers have been getting a hold of him, better writers. And as we've seen, oh my God, like Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite Spider-Man thing ever. I mean, it's
so damn good.
That was actually going to be one of my questions coming up is like, what was your favorite piece of Spider-Man media? But please continue.
Spectacular Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse are the two perfect Spider-Man. Oh, no, you know what? And the PlayStation Spider-Man game. Those are the three perfect Spider-Man things. I will hold them up as this is Spider-Man. Anything else has to meet this fucking standard. And that's all I feel. Spectacular Spider-Man, Spider-Man for the PS4, Enter the Spider-Verse. If you can't reach that standard, you're not doing it right.
Do you know what I really liked about Spider-Verse, like specifically? And it's something that I can point to in a lot of pieces of Spider-Man media that I've enjoyed. It doesn't treat you like you don't know the character. Like the first piece of Spider-Man that I ever really watched was the 90s cartoon.
Yep.
And I watched it pretty much every day after school. I enjoyed it. It has its flaws, but it's charming and fun, and it introduced me to a lot of the greater Marvel canon.
It's funny, to answer your question
in
before
its own
about
way.
my favorite Spider-Man media, Spider-Man animated series is very much my tie with Into the Spider-Verse, even though I know all the flaws, but continue.
Oh,
Shaka!
yeah, Shaka!
I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
It's beautiful. I love it.
Love it.
Hokey acting makes it better. But it, like, Spider-Verse doesn't treat you like, you know, you need the origin story. Oh, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this stuff and blah. Oh, look, you got bit by the bug, and like they give you that story, but it's like, hey, by the way, you've heard this before, so we're just gonna go into this. So there you go. And they show you all of these villains, and it's like, okay, you probably have an idea who these people are. And they even give you variations on the villains. Like Doc Ock in Spider-Verse is not, you know, the begoggled old
Otto
man
Octavius.
with a Shemp haircut.
Second
He's-
best Doc Ock, easy.
Yeah. So they even give you variations on it. And it reminded me very much of when I was a kid playing the Spider-Man PlayStation 1 video game, where they didn't bother introducing you to all these villains. It's like, hey, this villain exists. Okay, I wonder what their deal is. And you learn as you fucking go. Like, you know, you're entering the story in medias res. You don't need the origin of every fucking character, which is what I found so insufferable about, like, Amazing Spider-Man, especially hot off the heels of the Raimi trilogy, where it's like, okay, we just fucking got fucking go.
Yeah, there was literally no reason for Amazing Spider-Man to spend any time on Uncle Ben. You could have had him as Spider-Man. You could have had everything happening at like which is why I'm glad that the Marvel Spider-Man movies and Into the Spider-Verse. No, you know,
Yeah.
okay? Like
Marvel's Spider-Man movie, well, Disney's Marvel Spider-Man movies just completely skipped all that. It's like, yeah, no, he's been doing this for a bit. Tony Stark found him. That's how you know him. Boom.
To a degree, I understand the decision to do that because there's this thought process of it's very much the one that Stan Lee himself had, which is why so many Marvel books still have opening text things that explain that very quickly runs through the backstory, in that every comic is someone's first. And that's and it's that same degree for the movies. Every one of these movies is someone's first, so it makes sense to retell the origin if this is the first time they've seen it. But at the same time, there is something to be said for maybe you don't have to spend half the movie on it first.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, how many times do we need to see Batman's parents get gunned down?
I mean, I
And
never
actually,
get tired of that.
that is one of the few bits of credit I will give Batman v Superman Giant Monsters All Out Attack. They put the origin story in, but they made it very quick at the beginning and didn't dwell on it. One of the few bits of things I will give that movie.
To do it.
But again, because this might be someone's first, as
It's
bizarre as that might be, at least they got it. They just put it in and got it out of the way without needing to focus on it or something like that.
That's true enough. Like it was done in a very much like he's visiting the graves and you see the pearls scattering on the ground. It's like, yeah, his mom and papa died and he's carried that with him for what, 40 years now.
Yep. And then you can just move on to the actual plot. And at the same and I want to say that the same thing kind of happened in Into the Spider-Verse during each of those. Okay, let me recap the story so far bits where they like quickly give their origins.
Spider, blah 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 blah.
Exactly.
Like the most important one of those, I think, was Gwen Stacy, because that was the one that like pretty much everybody's in the audience is, okay, this is like, I'm pretty sure a majority of people's first introduction to both Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen.
Yeah.
So those two origin stories are like, okay, yeah, no, interesting. Yeah, like, okay, cool.
Exactly. Just to see the variations on it because of course, it's the same but different.
I won't lie. Spider-Gwen is one of those characters who initially I was like, that's dumb. And then every time I see her pop up, I'm like, oh no, she's really good. Fuck. Okay.
It's her design, like her Spider Spectre design.
Yeah, her design is one of the best in comic books, actually. Like, Jesus, I can't believe it's such a great color combination. And the more you read about her, because here's the thing, like making Gwen a hero immediately just I was like, no, don't take people who aren't heroes and just make them heroes for the sake of it. But when you find out how Spider-Gwen works, like the way that they made that story happen, I was like, okay, you know what? That's cool. She's cool. This is cool. I may need to actually read Spider-Gwen now.
It's kind of that ongoing apology for Gwen Stacy, because Gwen Stacy was her death was very much, it's a big dramatic moment. It's one of the most important parts of Spider-Man history. But at the same time, it is probably the classic example of women in refrigerators.
Oh, her fridging is a quintessential fridging right there. That is like, when you talk about top 3 fridgings, boom. And then number 1 is the actual fridging.
Yeah.
Just to poke this out there for people that might not get that reference. The reason it's called fridging is in what was it, Blackest Night?
No, not Blackest Night. It was the first few issues of Kyle Rayner as the Green Lantern.
Yeah, Kyle Rayner as Green Lantern. He shows up. Oh wait, no, I was thinking of like an event in Blackest Night.
Oh no, it was an event in Blackest Night. They reference it because they love to reference that too.
He shows up at his apartment looking for was it girlfriend or? I think
his girlfriend, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And she had been murdered and stuffed in the fridge.
Yep.
And he opens the fridge and then finds her. Yeah, it's not good. It's damn, bro.
And then in fucking Blackest Night, one of the Black Lanterns just like shows him a fridge and it freaks him the fuck out. Oh, fucking comics, man.
Comics are wild and sometimes really, really horrible.
Yeah.
Look, I have a very dark and morbid sense of humor, so when I heard that happened in Darkest Night, I just laughed.
I mean, look, yeah, no, how can you not? How can you not laugh at that?
It's so absurd.
Yeah, no, that is actually, if that was meant to be a joke, I'm sorry. Bravo.
No, but yeah. So Gwen is a classic case of that, and it's one of those things that has hung over the character so much to the point where it is still referenced. I mean, Dave Willis of Short Packed and Dumbing of Age fame used to always joke about the fact that Jason Todd's memorial in the Batcave kept getting smashed because for a dramatic moment, and it's very much the same thing with Peter, Gwen, and the bridge. They will reference it constantly. The Clone Saga did it no less than 5 times, where it's like some woman or the clone of Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane gets tossed off the bridge, and Peter's like, "No, I must save them this time." It's just the same thing over and over, and it's like there's a point where the character has to either move past it or from a meta sense, the writers need to move past it. And having Spider-Gwen is in many ways a great way to finally move past it, so we can just like have Gwen be her own character and be her own hero.
Yeah, the sliding timeline of comics is the main thing that has kept me off of them, which is why the only way that I consume comics nowadays is in graphic novel form for specific stories that people say, hey, this one's really good, give this a read. It's literally the only way that I've been able to consume the comics that I have.
It's such a problem in the industry. I mean, I love comic book superheroes. I love the ongoing story. I love the fact that it does not ever end, but I understand why it is so impenetrable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
In terms of how many Spider-Men there have been, though, I mean, you have Spider-Man 2099, like you got like Ben Reilly, you have Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Spider-Pit. Like, do you guys have like a favorite Spider-Man?
It is probably Ben Reilly during the early days of the Clone Saga. I mean, I love Peter. He is technically dead to me after one more day, but like, hey, that's a creative decision. They might still undo it, maybe, sort of, kind of, not, maybe. But Ben Reilly during the early days of the Clone Saga, he very much felt like something fresh and unique. The Peter Parker as a character had a lot of problems up to that point. He was becoming less relatable, not because of his marriage, but because of psychological problems that were not being addressed, where he was starting to refer to himself as the Spider, and he was becoming dark and grim, and you just knew that he was going to have a nervous breakdown where he might kill someone at some point. And the writers realized this too, and they realized, okay, how do we acknowledge the history of the character but still move on from this and get back our young new character who might be relatable to the audience again? And thus the Clone Saga and Ben Reilly, where Ben comes on the scene and sure, the angst of him, oh my god, I'm not a real boy, could get grating after a while, because it just lasted for so long and all that jazz. But I always like to come back to this. He fought Venom in like his first inaugural appearance as the Scarlet Spider. And up until that point, Peter had barely been able to defeat Venom. And one or two times he didn't defeat Venom. He made a deal with him to just stay out of each other's way, even though he was still a murderer. Yeah. And Ben was like, no, screw this. I'm bringing this guy to justice, and I'm going to become inventive. I have not upgraded my spider arsenal since the 1960s. So I'm going to invent some new things like impact webbing and paralyzing stingers and just like new tactics to bring something fresh to the table that's unexpected. And it worked. And Ben during those early days is really cool in that regard. But yeah, that's just my favorite thing. I also recall being a kid and only tangentially hearing about the Clone Saga, but knowing it went downhill fairly quickly.
For me, I guess so. My exposure to different Spider-Mens is pretty limited. So I kind of have to go with Peter Parker from Spectacular Spider-Man. Anybody who's ever heard me talk about Spider-Man before already knows that is the Spider-Man for me. I remember when I was watching it when I was younger, and between the exceptional dialogue there, nobody's made an exceptional Spider-Man yet. Between the exceptional dialogue, the simplified but often wonderful animation, and just a great story with a lot of twists and turns. Yeah, I got to give it up to Spectacular Spider-Man. That Peter Parker is the right mixture of downtrodden and put down on, and just also a morally upstanding guy who makes the kind of mistakes that you expect of a high schooler. I love him. I love that character. I love the story that they tell with that character, and the fact that we never got a third season for bullshit reasons still makes me. It actually, you know what? I can't believe I'm about to say this. Makes me more upset than the fact that we never got another canon season of Gargoyles.
Oof, that is, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It's been too long since I've seen Gargoyles to be aghast by that.
Yeah. And, besides that, obviously, again, I think that Miles Morales in Into the Spider-Verse is also wonderful. Interestingly, the Tom Holland Spider-Man is a mixture of Peter Parker and Miles.
Yep.
It's really strange that they just flat out did that and not enough. Nobody talked about it.
Oh, plenty of people talked about it, and I know a lot of people are still upset about that because it was co-opting a lot of Miles's stuff, so that it's that much harder to introduce Miles into the MCU.
Yeah.
I'm curious, actually. How do you mean?
Go ahead.
No, you can probably go over it better than I can.
The main thing that is brought up is that Peter's friend in that. I'm trying to remember his name.
Oh my God! None of us can remember, but it's just
his roommate who finds out he's Spider-Man.
I've been playing the game too much. All I can think of is Genki. Oh, Ned. It's Ned.
Yeah.
Guy
Ned
in the
is
chair.
just Genki.
Yep. He's a Miles character. He's Miles' best friend and supporting cast member. It's not Peter's.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Like, which is why I was like very confused playing Miles Morales. I'm like, oh look, he's got his own Ned, Genki, huh?
Yeah, between going to the exceptional school, an Asian American best friend who's also really good with tech, it's like that is Genki. And it's not a terrible move in terms of like making for a good Spider-Man movie, but it is really frustrating from like, you know what, I'm not surprised that there was a bigger conversation that I guess I just missed out on. That Miles Morales fans were entirely.
Miles
Morales fans were probably really pissed that Miles Morales was just Peter Parker now.
Yep. And and there's something to be said for culture he came out in. You could say the same thing probably about like Ultimate Spider-Man when he premiered, in that he was more put in a modern context versus Peter how he originally started. But but very much attitude of Peter reflects more of Miles being active on social media, recording clips of himself, putting them on YouTube of fighting crime and stuff like that. That's very much more a Miles thing to do because Miles was introduced in an era, in a time period where that was more common, especially for teenagers to be doing.
Right. So that makes more sense to me. I want to like shift into Rogue's Gallery a little bit here because I was thinking about like the Disney's Marvel Spider-Man movies and the fact that as opposed to like the other movies, we have yet to be introduced to any type of Osborn.
Yeah, huh? And they've intentionally done that. They've actually said that they want to avoid introducing characters or villains specifically that had already been introduced in any of the prior films.
I'm really psyched that we got Mysterio, and in a very cool way.
I still need to see Far From Home.
What?
I know, man, I'm awful.
It's outside of Spider-Verse and maybe Raimi's Spider-Man 2, it might be the best Spider-Man movie, in my opinion.
It's just, it's ironic considering I didn't see Homecoming in theaters either.
So I'm showing my hand. I am actually a huge fan of Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but I am actually more mid on his films.
I guess that's fair. Like they do just feel like another Marvel movie at this point.
I mean, ultimately, yes, that is one of my problems. The other problem, and I'm going to be honest about this, and I've been honest about this since the very beginning, the actual action is actually not spectacular. Like
is it amazing though?
I'd say it's not superior.
Okay, so definitely not Ultimate.
Cool.
Is it Silk? I don't even know if you guys even get that reference.
But yeah, I honestly, as somebody who watched the Raimi movies, which had good action with some questionable technology at the time, and then the Amazing Spider-Man movies action scenes are really good. Like way better than those movies deserve.
I don't know, the lizard, like all of the fight scenes with the lizard outside of the school one, the one in the school was really cool because you could actually see what was happening, but every fight in the sewer and during like night, it had that same problem that pretty much every DC movie climax has, where it's just so muddled and like what's happening, where's it going?
Yeah, I can kind of see that, but honestly, other than that, I don't know, I actually really I really like the action in both those movies, and I think the action in the Tom Holland ones, the Disney's Marvel ones, are just okay.
For me, it's about the characters and the overall writing style, and for me, Homecoming had one of the best Spider-Man style of things ever in terms of like his personality and being someone who tries to do good and ends up kind of screwing up at times, and just the two moments that really hit me, of course, being him lifting himself out of the rubble, because that is classic Spider-Man moment right there, adapted.
That scene is both harrowing and that's really, really good.
You had to catch yourself.
Shut the fuck up.
And saving the Vulture, and even though he knows the truth about him and all that jazz, because for him it's more about like saving people than being a killer and stuff like that. He's probably still one of the few heroes in Marvel in the MCU who's still not killed anybody, as far as I know. I haven't seen Far From Home. Well, yeah. I suppose you could say that maybe he killed one of Thanos'
but they're not human. They don't.
They're not human. They don't count.
Tony Stark snapped them all out of existence anyway. No body, no murder.
Exactly. But like but like you see the evolution of characters has been very different as cultural attitudes have shifted, because like Captain America back in like 60s and 70s was a character who would not kill people despite being in World War II. Nowadays, no, he totally would.
Yeah, he's a soldier.
He's a soldier.
He won't go out of his way to maliciously do it, but if it needs to be done, he'll do it.
But Peter very much has still stayed in that regard, that he is not trying to murder his enemies or anything like that. And that is good. They should definitely keep that, despite even when they go quote unquote more realistic for the rest of for other heroes.
He's one of those heroes that has to like really pull his punches, because like he's obscenely strong. And you run into that a lot. Like I make fun of it a lot in the video games, because there's a lot of moves he does in there. It's like, oh, that guy's dead. That guy's fucking dead. Oh, goodbye. You're off the building now.
I can see their parachutes. Don't worry.
The way they get around it in the games actually is, if you watch them fall, you'll see like a little zip tie, like web shooter pop out of their back and sling them and tie them to the building.
Of course.
I think that's really cute. I think that's such a great way to handle an otherwise difficult problem.
It is, because otherwise you kill a lot of people. You fight a lot of guys on the top of skyscrapers for no reason. Other than to just systematically just kick them off and get an easy elimination. But either way, when it comes to Spider-Man, does he have the most diverse rogues gallery? Is he like legitimately the Batman of Marvel? Because I know it's either him or the Fantastic Four that have like huge rogues galleries.
It is Batman and Spider-Man who tend to have the rogues gallery that people will compete with, who has the better array of villains, because they're so diverse in their attitudes and motivations and designs.
Do you have a personal favorite of your of Spider-Man's rogues gallery, Linkara? That
For me, it is Venom.
Like, oh, I love it when this guy shows up.
Venom? I love Venom. I did not go see the Venom movie just because like I'm not interested in Venom as a main character, as an anti-hero kind of thing. I like Venom as an opponent for Spider-Man. I am very much in the I love the dark mirror of the hero kind of thing, and for many people, Green Goblin is the biggest antagonist for Spider-Man because of their history together. But for me, it's Venom, just for the personal stakes, for having all his powers but better in that regard, for being scarier in that regard, because he's also bigger and meaner, and just the design of Venom with the big grin. It's scary, and I love it.
It is very iconic.
For me, it's sort of tough. So I actually only like Venom in two capacities. One, when he's okay. So in Spectacular Spider-Man, we actually see him don the Venom suit, and then it is inherited by Eddie Brock, and then he beats Venom.
Yep.
I feel like that should be the lifespan of Venom. I feel like Venom very quickly outlives his natural lifespan when you make him a recurring villain, because at that point it's just like, yeah, we get it. He's the bad version of Spider-Man, et cetera, et cetera. And I also particularly have a fondness for friendly neighborhood villains. I feel like Spider-Man is best served when he's fighting something, well, in the neighborhood and not space. I'm one of those guys. I'm like, nah. Keep it.
Yeah, when you throw Spider-Man against galactic level enemies, it's like, well, where are the buildings he's going to zip to?
Yeah, I prefer him.
It's especially, well, it's a funny thing you brought that up, Kaiser, because back during the Clone Saga, one of the ideas they had for resolving it, because by that point it had gone on for so long, they were just throwing anything at the wall. One of the ideas they had for how to resolve the situation was to have, like, ironically, Mephisto step in and be involved in it, or have time travel be resolved so that Ben and Peter were actually the same person. And they dropped these and of course they rejected these for a number of reasons. But the big one was, well, this cosmic stuff and this demonic stuff and science fiction on the level of time travel, that's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man fights, smaller scale threats. Sure, he'll go against, big businessmen. He'll fight, a giant robot on occasion. But more often than not, Spider-Man should not be involved in these kind of things. And nowadays we got Spider-Verse. We got both the comic Spider-Verse and the movie. We have him regularly interacting with more mystical stuff or variations of alternate universe versions of him. There's an entire comic of, I think right now, devoted to like League of Spider-Men kind of things where you have more regular variations of Spider-Man interacting with each other. And of course, it's just fascinating. The views of the writers have changed so much on that, mostly because of how popular something like Spider-Verse was, both comic and movie.
I think I make sort of an exception for Spider-Verse specifically because I feel like the alternate universe thing is something that if you do it in a limited capacity is just a fun story. It's a fun story you can do, but you don't have to commit to it for very long. That's why I know they're doing another Spider-Man and that's another Spider-Verse movie, and I'm a little tentative about it. I still think it could be great. They've got Joaquin Dos Santos directing, which is nuts. Which, by the way, a lot of you guys don't know, he's responsible for a lot of like Korra episodes in Voltron and stuff like that. And guy is an amazing choreographer and action guy. Hopefully, with the writing still being as strong as it was previously, we won't see any of the other problems that say Korra and Voltron ran into. But I don't know. The alternate universe stuff doesn't bother me as much as the galactic threat stuff does. But when it comes to villains that I love, my favorite villains, it's hard for me to choose between either Kingpin, who's technically a Daredevil villain, but I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, he kind of got transferred over a little bit.
He started as a Spider-Man villain, got transferred over to Daredevil, then back again.
Right.
Yeah, as Spider-Man got like bigger and bigger, and it's like, look, I have like all these other guys here. Daredevil, you can have this guy. He's fucking with Hell's Kitchen. There you go.
And the other
Stay
one,
in your neighborhood, friend.
Yeah, and the other one, and probably the one that I would have to choose coming out on top is Doc Ock. I love the concept and the execution of Doc Ock, a scientist who's gone mad because of the AI that he's connected to his back that drives him, like those tendrils that help him walk and attack. Like he's just been adapted so fantastically, so often. And I know about his involvement with Superior Spider-Man.
I was going to say, have you heard about Superior Spider-Man?
That shit is amazing, actually. I thought that sounded dumb at first, but then the more I read about it, I'm like, this is really cool.
Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock was dying and he found a way to transfer his mind into Spider-Man's, and then Peter Parker dies, and Dr. Octavius now has to live life as Spider-Man and figure out what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, he basically took over Peter's life. It lasted.
Give you the abridged version.
It lasted a while. I'm trying to remember if it was. I'm pretty sure it was over a year. Might have been like 3 years. I can't remember how long exactly, but like it lasted a long time, and that's where you introduced a few elements that did carry over once Peter came back again, including Parker Industries, because Octavius saw himself as a Superior Spider-Man. It's like, I have all this genius and power and whatnot. Why don't I actually like start a company and become rich? Because Peter never did that. I can do it though.
It's something that apparently came out way more interesting than it sounded stupid. Because it sounded pretty stupid when I heard it. But that's comics. That is comics, though. That is one of the really cool things about comics in general.
is that you can have these really cool ideas done terribly, but you can also have these really dumb ideas made spectacular. I mean, I gotta find another fucking word. but the really cool, like, because you'll have characters like Squirrel Girl who will have these fantastic comic runs of really fun stories. You'll have
everyone I quash, another rises to vex me.
And then you can have Spider-Gwen or Gwenpool. You can have Deadpool. I mean,
Who actually showed up in the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon for an episode.
Yeah. And
I think they changed the episode of that to the Spectacular Deadpool.
Yeah, it was all right. It was okay episode. It was all right.
That was pretty fun.
It was really fun.
You can only get away with so much with PG Deadpool.
Kaiser's reaction, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I actually really don't like that show. I actually found it incredibly boring.
Oh, that episode?
No, that show. I don't like that.
Spectacular Spider-Man, the one that you'd been raving about moments
Spectacular
ago?
Spider-Man didn't have Deadpool. Ultimate Spider-Man did.
Oh, Ultimate, my bad.
Yeah. Ultimate Spider-Man didn't, honestly, I genuinely just found the art and animation to be subpar. And they did the thing that I hate that they do with Spider-Man, that I absolutely hate that they do with Spider-Man. They made him team up with a bunch of other heroes on a regular basis. I do not like Spider-Man as part of a team.
You don't like Spider-Man and his amazing friends?
I don't. Because Spider-Man is I love Spider-Man just being on his own, dealing with stuff, and occasionally someone else will show up. But when he is when he is out of his depth around all these other heroes, I'm just like, I'd rather be watching a story about Peter Parker and his struggles and all of his stuff. If I wanted to see the fucking Avengers, I would watch Avengers stuff. And I remembered more episodes where he was teaming up with another hero than actual just stories about Spider-Man. And then the latest Spider-Man series is... And
that's very interesting to me, especially because I agree with Kaiser to a degree, but this brings me back to when you asked earlier about my favorite incarnation of Spider-Man, I was thinking just in terms of different variations on the character versus as in Peter Parker or Spider-Man 2099 or Silk or Spider-Gwen. No, but if I had to pin down my absolute favorite media version of Spider-Man, it would be Spider-Man the Animated Series. Partially because in the end, the storyline leading up to the 2-part finale of that series is their adaptation of Secret Wars, where they put Spider-Man in a position where he has to pick a bunch of heroes to try to fight the forces of evil for the Beyonder. And you see, and it's kind of that culmination of okay, I have encountered many. I've run into a bunch of superheroes before. Who would I think would be best to work with together on this? And I have to serve in a leadership capacity. It's that growth of the character over the course of 5 seasons, where he's in a position now where he will still make mistakes as the leader, but you see him where I could not see season 1. Peter Parker Spider-Man in that series, leading a team, and by this point, I can totally believe him doing so, and it's still it's still a reflection on him as a character, even though these other heroes are around. He convinces Dr. Doom to give up the Beyonder's powers because he's the only one among them who is I'm the only one who's ever been wanting to give up his powers before, because I know how much responsibility is required for this power.
To this day, that show in particular, I still look at as the number one prime source of all the information I have for Marvel's canon. All of the side characters that they kept bringing into it. I mean, they introduced me to Blade and Morpheus and all
Morbius.
Morbius. All of Spider-Man's rogues gallery. I think Ghost Rider makes an appearance in that. They just kept giving you character after character, and it was this. I know it's just this amazing. This amazing show for just vertical integration. Go buy the comics if you like this stuff. Go look at the comics. But it did it in such a way that I was able to get an understanding for all of these characters. And whenever new media would come out featuring them, like the Daredevil show on Netflix, I had a reason to give a shit because oh yeah, I remember him from this, and I know what he's about because of this, and not the Ben Affleck movie. And
Sorry, go ahead.
while I may not have a lot of like great things to say about that show nowadays as an adult, and looking back, it's like, oh my God, this was so 90s.
The animation
It
is
very
so
much
janky.
Yeah, it's like I can't go back and rewatch it, but I loved it as a kid.
And I did too. I've undersold it just a little bit because, again, as an adult, it doesn't hold up. But as a kid, oh my God, I would get upset if I missed an episode. I was hooked on that shit, and which is why I think, you know, when Spider-Man 2099 came out, or whatever the one that came out,
Like
The new animated
Spider-Man.
series made by MTV, or are you talking about Spider-Man Unlimited?
I think it was
Unlimited,
Spider-Man
'cause
Unlimited.
it was the one that
it only lasted for like 6 episodes or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was a full season. It only had the one season and it ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. I was like, nope, don't care, don't give a shit. And then I tried to watch the one on MTV.
The new
and
animated series.
It was ugly. It was really ugly.
It was really bad CG.
They did their best. I understand. And also, fucking Neil Patrick Harris as Spider-Man. On one hand, just amazing. That sounds great. On the other hand, maybe not so much as Peter Parker. And honestly, watching it, didn't work. I actually much prefer him as Nightwing in Under the Red Hood. Perfect fit there.
For me, Spider-Man the Animated Series, it may not hold up from an animation perspective, and it has plenty of problems on its own. But what holds it up for me, and why I can still rewatch it, is the writing. It had the best blend of melodrama, jokes, and just general feeling of what Spider-Man is than I think in any other adaptation or since the comics. It is just quintessential Spider-Man from start to finish, and they always manage to tie in, even when they have guest stars of other Marvel heroes occasionally. They always find a way to tie it back into Peter's character and the overall environment that he was in. It just worked so damn well, and it had a proper conclusion. And some could say that it didn't have a proper conclusion because he didn't technically get Mary Jane back at the end, but we could just assume it happened off screen. We don't have to actually see it physically happen for it to be a thing, because they had another season planned that they had to cancel.
Yeah, and for anybody that actually wants to check it out or just give it a look-see, I'm pretty sure all of it is on Disney Plus right now.
Ooh.
So
what, the 90s Spider-Man series?
Yeah, that and the 90s X-Men series, which I think had slightly less jank animation.
Yeah,
but
the animation was better, except for the final season because they switched animation studios, and it's noticeable.
But before we draw this to a close, I want to leave on a positive note. I want to hear each of your guys' favorite Spider-Man moments, just from any piece of media that you can remember that just makes you, whenever you think of Spider-Man, that's one of the first thoughts that comes to mind when you're in a good mood.
Right now, Into the Spider-Verse.
Which part specifically?
What part of the... okay, so I'm not going to say What's Up Danger, because, I mean,
Goosebumps, though.
Yeah, Goosebumps. But that one's sort of obvious. Honestly, that scene, that fight scene at the house. Holy crap. That whole scene is so amazingly... Oh, you know what? No. It's the train scene. The train scene where Peter has an unconscious Peter.
Or Miles holding unconscious Peter.
Yeah. During that whole scene, the music, the animation, everything going into it. It is so spectacularly directed and animated. You follow everything, even though a million things are happening all at once. It is unbelievable. It is tremendously well done. And that set the tone for the movie. I was like, well, okay, you know what? This movie is going to be one of the best Spider-Man things I've ever seen. And I was not anywhere close to wrong. It is my favorite Spider-Man thing. Just flat out.
How about you, Linkara?
For me, since we're talking about it anyway, the final season of Spider-Man the Animated Series just has so many individual moments like that, and the one that's immediately coming to mind is during the Secret Wars adaptation, where the Beyonder first brings Peter to Battleworld and describes this scheme of, I'm going to kidnap these 6 villains and have them run amok on this peaceful planet, and we're going to advance time 1 year, and the place has become devastated, and Peter's moral outrage of you needed to destroy an entire civilization to prove that evil is bad? And just like that moment where you realize he wants to take this guy down, just for the sheer horrible crimes that he has technically committed by doing all this. Just for me, Peter is very much a bastion of morality and doing what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds, in the face of anything, the sheer scope of everything like that. I just always come back to that moment of him not caring about the Beyonder's power, of showing everything he's doing, but he's just like, I'm going to confront you and call you out on this every moment of every day, during the entirety of this thing for what you have done here. There's other moments like that, but that's the one that's immediately coming to mind for me.
By the way, Nick was not wrong. In fact, also, like Spider-Man and Spider-Man Unlimited and the 1980s Spider-Man and Spider-Man Ultimate, the bad one that I didn't like,
yes,
are all available
on Disney Plus.
And as well as X-Men Evolution, and Wolverine and the X-Men. Who cares?
Well, funny you should mention that, because aside from like Leap of Faith / What's Up Danger, which I still get goosebumps every time I see that scene.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite Spider-Man moments that I think of when I think of the character isn't actually from a Spider-Man comic. It is from one of Jason Aaron's run with Wolverine.
Ooh.
And it's this comic where Wolverine, like it's I think it's called like A Week in the Life or something like that. And you just see like Wolverine bouncing back and forth between all these teams. It's all these like single page / one panel shots of like Wolverine just doing these ridiculous things. And then the next day you see him like either recovering or running off to the next thing. And you hear on the news like, and then all these people died. And Wolverine's just like, oh, motherfucker. Nobody ever talks about the good shit. And finally you end up with this scene where Spider-Man has tracked Wolverine down in a like dive bar in Manhattan, and he just kind of like sits down with him, is like, hey man, how's it going? And he just has this like very personal one-on-one conversation with a very distant and just like, I don't want to deal with this bullshit right now, Wolverine. I just need to be detached so I can do this shit so people can be all right, because I got a fucking like list of shit to work off. And Spider-Man just like talks to him like a friend. And that's a scene that I always think back to, because Wolverine's just like being so unreceptive. And then they beat up these goons that pop in that like are trying to rob the bar, and they see Spider-Man and Wolverine sitting there and just like, fuck. So obviously like the next panel you get is just these guys knocked unconscious. And it all ends with like Spider-Man saying like, if you keep pushing yourself like this, you're going to die. And like that he like genuinely cares about this guy that clearly is not receptive to it. And Logan's just like, I think I'll push, I'll keep going, but thanks, kid. It like really does mean like it meant the fucking world to Logan that Pete would do that. And that's just a moment I always think back to. I love those little moments, those just showing that they care kind of moments to people. Like there's a clip, like there's a few pages of Miles Morales, like one of the later runs of Miles Morales going around Twitter right now, of him just like talking to this kid who was getting bullied and like being awestruck over all of his like
artwork.
Yeah, his artwork and his like designs for clothing. And then he like, takes the kid web swinging so he can get like a little like Instagram story with him.
Oh yeah,
just to like lift the kid's spirits.
Yeah.
Or even a touching Deadpool moment where he talks somebody out of committing suicide just by like sitting up there and chilling with them for a bit. And that's Deadpool.
I agree on those kind of little moments. I think all the moments we have listed are basically Spider-Man in a nutshell. Just the various different aspects of him. He can have those big triumphant moments against superior odds. At the same time, he can also just be a down-to-earth, very human sort of superhero who is more the man than the spider. It's
very much kind of like quintessentially the idea of with great power comes great responsibility. We all have a lot of power. Like a single kind word to somebody who needs it can be more powerful than anything. And so I guess if we're going to leave on anything, just be cool to each other, be good people, and times are hard enough. Anytime that you feel like you're at the end of your rope and you've had somebody like just do you a favor, a small kindness, remember that feeling and always try to pay it forward. This has been the Talkcast Pod Show. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this. This has been a great conversation. Very happy
Thank you for having me.
to have you go on for this. Hell yeah.
Sorry, we didn't talk much about the Spider-Man Miles Morales game, but I haven't played it. Neither has Linkara.
No worries. I wanted to have just like a general Spider-Man talk. Honestly, with the game, not a whole lot to talk about. It is a solid game. I highly recommend it. But thank you guys for listening. Be awesome to each other. And have a great day. Stay happy and healthy. Peace out.
Bye.